making a bit of milky coffee magic happen on my morning walk today. Let's do this. The Jungian analyst Robert A. Johnson once said that heaven and Skid Row are separated only by an act of consciousness. And I just love that. That speaks to me. If you're watching this video at this moment, there's a very high likelihood that you are watching it as an act of consciousness and in the spirit of consciousness, meaning you're not just going through the motions, you're not just kind of in one ear and out the other, passively observing without absorbing. You're actually looking for either something to shake you awake, take you out of the funk, explain to you how to do something that you want to do, how to be better to yourself, how to live a more engaged and vivacious life, how to stop being an enemy to yourself. Like you're awake in this moment. You're looking for a miracle, a shift in perspective, a tool that you didn't previously have in your toolkit, a weapon that you didn't previously have in your arsenal, that makes sense for you, that you can use, that you can utilise, that you can harness to get you moving and to improve your life in some way. That act of consciousness is really the difference between wasting opportunities like this, where you sit with your sense of pure intention and you utilise tools, videos, books, workshops, conversations you're having with people, articles you're reading, whatever it is and whoever it's given to you by. That act of consciousness, that awareness, that desire to put the tools into practice, not just to listen passively but to engage consciously, that is self-love in action. And that's what I'm all about, and that's what's so important. And I've noticed as I've started to create content for Self-Love September, as I'm editing the videos that I've previously made and uploading them through the month, I'm really realising that all roads lead back to self-love in a way. Like, I think to myself, what could I talk about today to do with self-love? What can I what can I engage with people about on the channel? What can I kind of address? And actually what I've realised is that pretty much everything that I like to talk about, everything that I like to do, every kind of video that I like to make leads back to self-love. Everything, like the spiritual autonomy stuff, the stuff about shadow work, the stuff about my own journey with eating disorders, self-harm, like authenticity, owning your power. It's all self-loving material, really. It's just a case of whether or not we're awake and listening and hearing and observing and absorbing and really giving it to ourselves, versus just passively kind of rocking up and watching it or listening to it with no real agenda. Really, all roads lead back to self-love, right? So with that said, I would like to posit a few thoughts to you on my morning jaunt, and know that they will be in alignment with the topic of self-love, and that I can link everything back together through using my intuition, talking about what I feel called to talk about in the moment, and knowing that it is related to self-love if you choose to absorb it in a conscious way, if you see it as something that you can take and you can potentially use. If you are awake whilst listening, then it will be self-love content, because you will be rocking up to it in a self-loving mindset, with a self-loving mentality. Don't tell yourself that you need Mojo in order to make a start, because you don't. You don't. It's a myth, it's a lie, it's an excuse we feed to ourselves over and over again. You do not need to wait to suddenly have the inspiration to write. You do not need to wait until it feels like the right time to go for that run that you keep saying you're going to go for. You don't need to wait before you move your piece on the chessboard of life. You can do it when you don't feel 100% ready for it. You can do it even though you have your reservations. You can do it even though you'd rather sit on the couch and eat ice cream. You can get it moving first, and then the inspiration will come. I know I often quote Picasso, and I know that many of you have heard this quotation before, but it's so fitting. Inspiration has to find you working. Repeat, inspiration has to find you working. You've got to be going through the motions. You've got to be showing up and showing the universe that you're ready and you want it, before you really get that sacred feeling of intention and that sacred feeling of invincibility and that sacred feeling that you can really do it and the wheels are really moving and it's really happening. I know for me, there's many times in my life when I was younger when I've waited around for the guts, the gumption, the motivation, the spark. I need that spark. I don't have that spark. And it's like, well, Christ alive, Kellyanne, if you wait around for the spark, you're going to be waiting a long time, honey, and you're a long time dead. So you've really got to do something here. That's when I realised that the the motivation story, the I'm waiting for the spark of inspiration story, it's just a story. It's just a story that you feed yourself to keep yourself trapped and to keep yourself small and to keep yourself feeling safe in the warm, familiar monotony of the current situation. Actually, you do not need to wait for that spark of inspiration to come. In fact, if anything, just begin now. Begin now when there is no spark of inspiration, and you open the door then for that energy to connect with your energy. You know, a lot of people talk about showing up and like showing the universe, the cosmos, that you're ready for the energy that you want to bring in. You know, you've got to show your openness to something, your willingness to something, your willingness to receive, your willingness to be in the swim of it. You've got to show that in some way, through action, through making a change, before those doors will open. Andy Warhol said people always say things change, you know, but actually you have to go out and you have to change them. And I think that is quite a tough loving thing. That's a nugget of tough loving wisdom. That's a hard, harsh little diamond that came out from a lump of coal. It took a long time. People always say things change, but they don't. You actually have to go out and change them. I think that's bold, because if you're sitting around waiting for a change, if you're sitting around waiting for that day all the time, then you're a slave to that vision of that day when everything will change, when everything will come good. Why can't you decide? Why can't you choose? Why can't you say today is the day? Today's the fucking day. I don't know what I'm going to write, but I'm going to write something. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say something. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to start doing what I envision doing, what I want to do, what I see myself doing in my mind's eye. Even if it's just tidying up, even if it's just decluttering your space, getting rid of a bunch of stuff that you don't need anymore. Why are you giving your autonomy over to this little idea, this idea that you've got to wait around for these energies to come into alignment and swirl around and create a big bang that's going to change your life? You know, make like the witch, work from the heart of the witch, create those circumstances, create that energetic resonance now for yourself. You can do it. That's what magic is, and it's absolutely available to you. It's absolutely available to you, and it is miraculous, and it is game changing, and it is mind fucking, and it is system shifting. If you can get into it, if you can give that power to yourself. Mojo is not mandatory. Mojo is not mandatory. That is what we're going to call it. That's going to be the slogan. That's going to be the tagline. Mojo is not mandatory. Don't tell yourself that you can't make a start because you've lost your mojo, you've lost your way, you don't have that spark of inspiration. You know, you're waiting for the drive. You're waiting for the drive. That's just a form of enslavement. That's mental slavery. You don't need it. Get rid of it. It's old paradigm. Get rid of it. Build the new paradigm from the ground up. And lay the foundations right here, right in the heart space. If you carry out the physical act when you're not really feeling like it, but you know that you want it, you know that you need it, you know that you're crying out for it, if you carry out the physical act, inspiration has the greatest chance of showing up then, because you've welcomed it, you've opened the door, you've sent it an invitation that it can RSVP to. You know what I'm saying? You coming with me on this? Here's something else too that I think is so important for so many people at so many different times in life, and it's been really important for me to realise and come to terms with. Sometimes any action is better than no action. If you're sitting on your hands and you know it, and you're feeding yourself BS and you know it, and you're scared, so you're trying to convince yourself that it's not the right time, or you just need to make the right decision, or you're not really sure what all the variables are yet, and you're waiting for everything to become clear to you, then I would say, look, just do something, shake it out, get into your body, make some kind of a change, show your willingness, your openness to receive, your openness to learn something. No choice leads you to a doorless room. No choice. No marriage, no move to another part of the country or another part of the world, no creative decision, no job opportunity that you choose to take or choose to leave behind. No choice leads to a doorless room. It might feel like, God, if I make this choice, there's no going back and there'll be no opportunities for me after this, and I need to really, think so carefully about this. I need to think about it and consider it so much that I'm barely able to breathe, I'm barely able to move, I'm barely able to make myself a cup of tea. How am I even still alive? It's really, really easy to catastrophize like that and amplify the choice and highlight it and underline it so much that you're convinced it's got a hold of you and you're a slave to it. But no choice leads to a doorless room. When you look out on the terrain as it is right now in your life, you can only see the terrain from that one vantage point. If you step forward or step to the left or step to the right or move back a little bit or move around a little bit, you will notice that the terrain that you see in front of you and around you will change because your vantage point has changed. You will notice, for example, if you move 3 steps forward, that the terrain, there's all these little bits on the terrain that you didn't see before. You're like, oh, there's a cluster of trees over there. There's a pathway over there that I didn't see when I was back a couple of feet. Now that I've moved forward, my vantage point has changed. I can see new opportunities. I see how the land lies a little more. That is what making a choice is. That is what taking action is. It's just moving your vantage point. You move your piece on the chessboard, you see how the game works a little more. The game itself changes. Things happen. Things slot into place. Things fall out of favour or out of reach, and things come into reach. You are changing the game up all the time when you make a decision, when you take a step forward, when you make a choice. No choice leads to a doorless room. You might feel like there's no way forward from whatever choice you're making, but there's a shitload of doors that you just don't see yet. So don't ever convince yourself it's a dead end. Because really, let's face it, the only dead end is the box that we're all going to end up in. And if you're watching this video, you're probably one of the many, many people who believes that that ain't even in the end, that actually our energy is infinite and will just manifest itself in another form. What I've realised that I've been talking about through the course of this video is crappy stories that we tell ourselves, that entrap us, that enslave us, that make us feel like we're not in control, that make us feel small and helpless and all the rest of it. And it occurs to me that I've actually recently written a blog post about this, about crappy stories that we tell ourselves. So I'm going to link that below in the doobly-doo. I'm also going to link below to the master post for Self-Love September so that you make sure that you never miss a trick, because I am making videos, but I'm also blogging and I'm also making SoundCloud audio files every Sunday, and maybe some other times as well. I don't know, it depends how prolific I'm feeling, depends how wide open I am to the possibilities for Self-Love September. Anything could happen in the next few weeks. So yeah, I'll link below to the doobly-doo, in the doobly-doo, to the master post so that you never miss a trick, so that you can gobble up whatever I'm producing for Self-Love September. But also remember that I am on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. Everything is in the doobly-doo as always, to help you to follow along with anything and everything that I and anyone else who's following along might be saying under the hashtag Self-Love September. So that might be helpful too, to get your mojo going a little bit more. You know what my advice is? Just be honest with yourself this month in particular. Give yourself this room, hold this space for yourself to be honest about the crappy stories that are keeping you in place, and the narrative that you are weaving, that you are constantly spinning and looming and weaving all the time. And ask yourself, does it expand your universe? Does it expand your sense of what's possible? Does it deepen your relationship with yourself? Or does it make you feel like shit? Does it make you feel small? Does it make you feel scared? Does it make you feel helpless? Because you choose that narrative. You spin that yarn. It's your responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility, and it's no one else's fault. You get to choose in any given moment. Have a look at what keeps going wrong consistently, or what you're convinced is always the problem in your life. Like if you always feel like something to do with money just keeps jumping up and biting you in the arse every time, and you just feel like you're somehow cursed with these money issues, like, you really just have a negative relationship with the whole concept of money and finance and material security, and that is really a crappy narrative for you. Maybe you're convinced that you're just never ever lucky in love. Maybe you're convinced you're never ever lucky on the job market, or you kind of always feel like you're always missing the mark creatively. Where are you responsible for the narrative that you are weaving, and how long have you been weaving that narrative for? And just plainly and simply ask yourself, in a moment of pure, sweet madness, openness to the sense of possibility. Ask yourself, is there another choice? Is there another story I could be telling myself right now? Is there another narrative I could be weaving? Am I overlooking a lot of different things that I could be or do or feel or experience or show up for, or indeed release, get rid of, you know? Ask yourself where you are keeping yourself stuck. Look, it might be possible that there are outside variables, there are external factors, there are forces beyond your control that are limiting your, you know, your viability for certain things, your opportunity for certain things. Yeah, totally. Look, there's external forces controlling my life too. You know, I didn't say I was the all-knowing, magnanimous creator of all. I'm a co-creator, just going on my own little journey right now. Of course, there are external factors that limit my ability to do things, or my, you know, limit my scope for exploration or possibility in certain ways, as there will be for everybody, obviously, of course, absolutely. But the point is, if you are admitting to yourself that those are external factors and they're beyond your control and you can't do anything about them, then leave them behind. Focus on what you can control. Forget the stuff that's beyond your control. Forget that. Think about what's within your control and where your narrative is toxic in that way, and where you can make a different choice. I guarantee you, wherever your shitty story is, wherever your crappy little story is, there's another one that you could be telling. And it's not as difficult for you to slip into that new paradigm as you might think. You're just telling yourself that it's difficult, but it's really not. I was listening to Alan Watts the other week because I like to try and stay as sane as possible, and for that you really need Alan. You really need Alan. If you've never experienced the joy, the wonderment, the sheer totality, integration and mind-blowing perfection of Alan Watts talking, then there's a lot of it on YouTube, so go forth and bless your ears and your mind and your soul with Alan. What a legend. So I was listening to Alan, like you do, and he was basically saying that, you know, the president can't really be the president if he's constantly lying awake at night worried about what each and every one of his subordinates are doing, right? So the president can't be the president if he can't delegate. He can't be the president if he isn't willing to allow other people to get on with their job so that he can just get on with his job. He can't think about what every single person in the White House is doing, what every single clerk is doing, what every single press representative is doing. You know, he won't be the president if he does that. He'll just be a neurotic basket case. He'll be a mess. And in the same way, you know, when you go to sleep at night, you can't afford to be lying there thinking about what each and every one of your organs is doing. You know, you can't be thinking about whether or not any of them are going to fail and hoping that they're all working in perfect harmony with each other and consciously checking in with every single one of them and thinking about, you know, going to the doctor to make sure they're all okay. You just trust. You trust in the system. You trust that everything is going as it should be going, and that if there's a problem, your body will sooner or later let you know. You have to trust. You can't worry about every little thing. You can't waste precious energy thinking about every little factor all the time. And so I would encourage you to take a look at the ways in which you're doing that at this point in your life. How are you doing that? How are you worrying about crap loads of stuff that you can't control, or that you are not fully aware of, or that you are not even supposed to be losing sleep over or worrying about, because you are supposed to be doing your job, which is to live your life. Live your life and stop allowing the fear to overtake you. Co-creation is a sacred act of trust. And it is the fastest and most wondrous way to find yourself accepting the full scope of possibility for everything that you can do and be and experience on this planet in your human lifespan. It's about knowing where to place your focus, where to place your energy, knowing where you have the most impact and placing your focus there. You know, when you give equal worth and equal concern and equal attention to every single little variable, regardless of how much you can control it, regardless of how much it comes down to you or not, when you lie awake at night worrying about the economy, worrying about death, worrying about these things that are totally beyond the scope of your personal impact, then you know that you are in resistance to the act of co-creation, and you're in resistance to the art of co-creation. Allowing co-creation is to focus on what you can do. You know, that story that's going around all over the internet at the moment, that little parable about the boy throwing starfish into the sea. You know, the starfish are like being beached on the waves and dying, and he's going along and he's like throwing the starfish back into the sea, and an adult says to him, there's so many starfish, you know, forget about it, you can't help them all, you can't save them all, it's not going to make a difference if you throw a few back. And the boy says, it will make a big difference to the ones I am throwing back. And that's co-creation. That's the art of co-creation. Recognise where your autonomy is, where your power is, and start there. Don't worry about the big picture. Yes, there are fuckloads of bloody starfish on the sea. You can't help them all, no. Does that mean that you check out? Does that mean that you spiritually bypass? Does that mean that you don't try and help? Does that mean that you don't move your piece on the chessboard? Does that mean that you're powerless to have any kind of impact over your life or anybody else's? No, you pick up the starfish that you can pick up, and you start there. You do what you can do. You honour your power. You know, don't get caught up in the big picture. Prioritise where you place your focus. Place your focus on what you can do in the moment, and honour that. Honour that. That is all that you can do, and that is what it truly means to recognise the art of co-creation. Is just to let go of worrying about all the organs, let go of worrying about every subordinate, let go of worrying about the stuff that you can't change, let go of wasting your energy in those ways. Harness your energy, respect your energy by putting it to good use. Put it where it's needed. Harness it, respect it. Don't waste it on petty concerns, don't waste it on the stuff you can't change. Release and accept, surrender to the things that you can't change, and put your energy where it's going to make an impact right now. Pick a starfish up today. Do it. Do it. Okay, that's all, guys. Happy Self-Love September. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble and for honouring my ramble. And I hope that my ramble has given you a little bit of company for a short time on your journey which I honour and I respect, and which is individual to you, and which is filled with the beauty and the majesty of your consciousness and your many unfolding moments, seen through the lens of your personal perspective. And isn't that the most magical thing of all? I love this tree. I can just feel the wisdom vibrating off of it. And when I stand in the swim of that wisdom, in the gathering swirls of that wisdom, and I feel that energy come over me like a great big paternal wave, I connect with my internal eternal father. Beautiful. And with that, I bid you adieu. Much love and self-love through September and beyond. Blessed be.